Yes, we're live. We meet again,
Woohoo!
once again.
Yep. And so
um,
we meet again.
yes, I always make this joke where at the
Mm-hmm.
start of the live streaming, we have to pretend we didn't meet before the live streaming,
Oh, hey, I'm on this thing. I've never seen you. Wait, how do I get in the how do I get out?
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, hi everyone. This is yet another episode of the Security Brand Podcast. I'm Giorgio, and this is just a little project of mine where I invite cool people to just have a chat
That's the
on.
best compliment I've ever had, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just a heads up. I say this to everyone, but anyway, I mean all of my guests in this project because I just invite cool people. Anyway, so this is just a little project where I invite people and have a chit chat on some recent security news, and the purpose is just read them, discuss about them, and possibly learn something in the process, because I strongly believe that exchanging thoughts with other people from the industry is really really helpful, and helps you process information, find new stuff that you want to research and deep dive on, and yeah, just grow professionally and personally. Today with me, there's Ronnie Tokadzowski. Okay, I hope that that's correct.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, thank you very much for joining. But do you want to maybe briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, as you said, my name is Ronnie Tokazowski. I track many types of scams on the internet. Track business email compromise, romance scams, pig butchering. I go under the handle of Malware, which is what most people know me as on the Twitter sphere, or actually no X now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been under there, reversed tons of malware in the past. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And I really believe that your background, your knowledge will be definitely very very helpful with some of the news that we collected tonight. Great. So the format is very easy. Basically, we have a bunch of those news. I'm gonna share my screen in a second, and we will just have a talk on them. Just a quick request: if you are watching this either live here on Twitch, or maybe rewatching the recording on YouTube or Spotify, listening in that case, please consider sharing this, commenting, or possibly even hitting on that subscribe button, because that's what will just let me know that I need to continue with this, and I need to invite more people. Maybe I can invite Ronnie once more if you like it. um, so yeah, please do that.
Or if you don't like it, don't subscribe to his content or my content either. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's a message anyway, right?
Mhm.
Just let me know what you think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either way. Okay, great. So let me share my screen here. Okay, so we have it. Cool. So I'm going to quickly introduce the news. First one of this, it's actually a very very cool article from Graham Cluley, where he describes a phishing email he received, right? And I really thought, it's actually pretty interesting the way, like the email itself, the content of the email, and the way they tried to trick Graham. And of course, they didn't make it this time, but I think there's a lot of stuff that will probably hit so many people out there. So I really think it's interesting to have a look at this. So the email is basically, let's say, spoofed to come from YouPorn, right? The famous porn site. um, we can see here that the email appeared to be actually legitimate, and even the content is pretty well written. So there are some screenshots from the body of the email, and I think it's something from I will say a few years ago, where we always said in the industry, okay, if the email is in a poor English, or is not well written, that should be a red flag, something that should let you think about phishing. But I think nowadays it's less and less common.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
and that grammar, that's definitely, yeah, I agree with you. Is something where a lot we used to say, yeah, that's the 100% de facto one, but so many of these scammers are figuring out, no, you have to make it look more enticing. You have to
yeah,
add that good grammar in order to start hitting more people on that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
And it's not always that. So there are a few things for me at least are very very interesting. So the email starts from the very beginning, basically highlighting how YouPorn has some AI powered tools, right, in order to recognize I guess faces from their videos and actually recognize the people in the videos, and they are supposed to reach out to those people and make sure they really know about them being in a porn video, and that they are okay with that being uploaded on their platform, with is something that you would, or at least some people would expect those kind of sites to do, right? It's actually a pretty good thing from a porn site, right? In case that's really true that is coming from them, of course. And so the email is saying, okay, we have a video where there's you on the video, right, that is being uploaded, and in case you don't want this really to be uploaded, you have like something like a week in order to prevent the video to be shared. There's this mention about AI tools that I think it makes anyone today put some attention on it, right? Everyone is talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and I think that's just another way to keep your attention on the email, right? Um, and basically the fact is that it will eventually ask you to pay in order to prevent the video to be uploaded. There are also different kind of subscription or kind of tiers you can pay. Or you can pay just to prevent this video, you can pay a little more to prevent these and more videos for the rest of the year, or potentially you can pay to they say leverage their tools, their technology, to find out even if there are more videos of you with your face, recognizing automatically your face in the videos, and prevent the video to be shared on their platform or other platforms from their network, or at least that's what they mentioned. So again, there are a bunch of stuff in it that I really think they are interesting, but I want to know your first thoughts when you read this article.
Oh yeah, definitely sounds good. There is a ton that sticks out to me on this. First and foremost, the whole concept of the sexual extortion, or sextortion, if you will. We really kind of saw that coming popular with the Ashley Madison dump. And for
Yeah.
those who are unaware, Ashley Madison was an adult dating website where that had gotten hacked, that database had gotten leaked, and all of the names of the members became public. So you knew who was on the web, on the domain. And at the time, scammers took that domain and took that leaked data, if you will, and started emailing those people out saying, "Hey, I know you were on this website. I'm going to go and tell all your friends that you were on here, unless you pay that information." That was kind of one of the first places that we started seeing a lot of sextortion, and that has now adapted, morphed into many different flavors of things. Of, hey, we saw you browsing these websites, go pay Bitcoin here. We saw you doing this, go pay Bitcoin here. And this more recent example here is actually more, I would almost say, is like a convenience piece. Whereas a lot of the other websites, when a lot of the other phishing emails, when they would happen, they'd be like, "Hey, you did this bad, horrible thing. I'm going to try and take that money from you. I'm going to extort you out of that." But with this one, it's like, hey, FYI, we have this really cool feature. We added this artificial intelligence. AI is in the buzzword of virtually every news article, every headline over the last couple months. So it's something that's in our public consciousness. So when you see, hey, AI scanned this, to a regular person who's going to be receiving that email, that's something that's feasible, because we hear so many different topics about artificial intelligence being able to do these really cool things. And when reading through the article, that was one of the biggest things. That kind of, it's like, hey, here's a convenience. I'm going to try and help you out here. And because of that, people are going to be more likely to click that, and they're going to be more likely to try and fall for that, in my opinion, as opposed to the, hey, I'm going to scare you into doing this. Unfortunately, with a lot of material like this, there is a lot of stigmas around viewing that content, participating in this content. Not going to get into those, debates or anything. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of shame that goes along with, hey, I found you in this website. I'm going to go share this stuff. I'm going to push you into here. And for some people, it'll shake them up. And when you have a user who sees this, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go pay that $200 just so that I'm not on there. I'm going to go pay that. I think it was up to almost $1,100 in some cases for that to
Yeah,
not be referenced. Or actually, no, $1,400 to not be referenced on there. And for that convenience of having that peace of mind, if you will, we'll pay a lot for that. We will pay a lot to feel like we don't have to worry about something. And that's why, like, if you take a look at insurance companies, it's something where it's like, okay, you pay all this money to not have to worry, and not to have to worry about something. If something does happen, okay, don't have to worry about it. But what we're seeing here, and again, this is something with a lot of phishing examples and a lot of phishing emails that we see, our emotions are being turned against us to make us feel shame or to make us feel afraid. And it's in that sense of being afraid of something that the scammers will be like, hey, you need to go and buy this money to help get rid of that scared feeling, to get rid of that shame feeling, to not have to worry about that.
absolutely. Like while you were talking, I was also thinking about, so what kind of red flags we can find on this, email, or anyone could find it. Because again, the usual ones, like, okay, look at the who is really sending the email, or is it very well written or not. I
Mm-hmm.
really believe those are not very useful in this case, right? If
Right,
the
I
email is
agree.
very well written, it
Yep.
seems, it's really sent by YouPorn. So
Yeah.
that's not something you can really use to find out about the phishing.
Yeah,
um
the only case, again, this is now gets, if you scroll back up to the email subject, the only case where it might be a typo, but again, this is going to come down to email etiquette in this perspective, where it says urgent upload content notification. Depending on the casing, content and notification might have to be capitalized. Again, depending on how you send your emails. I know
yeah,
personally, I do that casing for my stuff, but again, it's dependent on how somebody sends that. But no, I agree 100% with you. Is it looks like it's from YouPorn. It's very well written. It's grammatically, it's correct. So minus the use of a Bitcoin address, everything looks legitimate.
you actually make me notice something, right? The subject
Mm,
say, starts with urgent,
mhm,
which is, the sense of urgency is
mhm.
something that they definitely leverage in order to make you think fast, and we not really, process too much on what to do, and just act, right? So that could
Right.
be one. I don't know, not the strongest one, but that could be one of the clues. The other things, there are some strong, signals that we didn't mention before. It's actually that there are a couple of links, that you should be able to click on the body of the email. Those links that should actually redirect to the site where you should be able to review the video, right, and to be sure that it's actually you. And those videos are not really working. So
Mhm.
there's actually no point
Wait,
in
wait. You mean
saying,
I can't go see? I can't go see what I'm doing. I can't go see what the videos
yeah,
are. No,
exactly.
need to be able to see it. Where I can't click it.
Yeah, that is actually probably worse. But
Mm-hmm.
still, the fact that there are not just one, but more, two or three links, I don't really remember. Anyway, that they are not working. It should say something, if you're paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end, like, one could say, okay, but I know, like Graham in this case, I know I didn't do any porn video, right? So I'm not worried about this. But I was also thinking, they start talking about AI from the very beginning. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they are not specifically saying it, but if you read some news here and there, you definitely know that, you know they could fake it, right? Someone
Oh
could
yeah.
basically take your face and do a deep fake video. Deep fake is basically, the process to elaborate video and or audio, I think, automatically mimicking your own voice or appearance, just because they got some audio recordings or some photos of you or videos of you from social networks or something. So
And the interesting piece with that is I was actually walking around DEF CON this year, and in where one of the villages and everything, they actually had live videos playing where they were actually modifying
yeah,
faces and putting them on top of things. So the concept of, hey, you have your face on this that's being now pasted on top of something, like it's entirely possible. I know
absolutely.
on the underground market, again in the adult film industry, there's an entire underground market of pasting celebrity faces on other bodies for that reason. So again, this is something that we have actually seen in the wild. So again, it's something where it's entirely plausible that no, someone did do that. The other thing too, you also mentioned a lot of the voices, and people need to understand that when it comes to making AI voices, um, it's not that difficult, and there really is not much that goes into it. I know there's been some cases where family members have been called up, where like spouses and loved ones have been
Mm.
abused and kidnapped and beaten, and they're like, it sounds exactly like them. To test some of that technology, I think it was either 30 seconds or a minute of audio from my voice, that I'm like, okay, I'm going to upload this and then make a completely different script that has nothing to say with. Not only did it sound like me, it actually captured my mannerisms, which was terrifying to say the least. So we're in an era now where it is possible to generate these things, and specific to facial recognition and facial face with AI, we have seen real time action of that being used in the case of scams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, the speech we were talking about from DEF CON, we spoke about this in one of the previous episodes. So if you're watching this and you are interested, try to have a look at the previous episode, so you can understand what we are talking about.
And I totally
Um,
meant to do that on purpose too. Totally meant to refer back to that.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
mentioned this to you before, right? Let's do this. Let's plan so that we can
Oh
refer
yeah.
to the previous episodes.
Well, actually, no.
Uh,
For all the viewers, you said that I'm supposed to pretend like we've never seen anybody. So I was supposed to hop on and be like, ah, so we meet again. I have never seen or spoken to you like 15 minutes prior to the starting of this recording. So
okay, this is going to be nice. So yeah, we mentioned about the AI thing. We mentioned about the missing links. Now I think there's another major signal, at least in my point of view. And the fact is that
crypto.
yes,
Yep.
eventually they will ask you to pay not with any card or not with PayPal or something, but with I think Bitcoin, right? Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
specified there. So with cryptocurrency, they just give you the wallet, right? The identifier of their Bitcoin wallet, so you can do a transaction in there. So I think they briefly help you with how to do that, because of course not everyone is able to do that, and this should be, at least in my eyes, a major signal, because I don't think it's still that common, right? That
Mm-mm.
a legit organization or just big organizations support those kind of payments. And we should know that unfortunately that's not the, let's say, the goal of cryptocurrencies, but we know that attackers or cyber criminals and all of those kind of people like to use this kind of currency because it's difficult to track. Not impossible, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely much better compared to just cash, right?
There's also a lot of uncertainty around cryptocurrencies too, because if I go and send something through like a wire transfer from my bank, I can go and call my bank and be like, "Hey, I sent this wire. It went over to this place. I need help trying to get this recouped." But if you go and buy Bitcoin, for example, it's going to be very much a different case where you don't necessarily know who to contact, who to reach out to. You might buy it through Coinbase, Cash App. I think PayPal even has some abilities to do crypto now too. But the processes in order to get that recovered isn't as easy. In addition to that, for your end user, many of them have know the word Bitcoin, many of them know cryptocurrency, but very similar to AI, like that's the extent that many of them know about it.
Yeah.
They might have done more research in regards to it, but yeah, it's very much a black box where they might not know the full inner workings of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that's the major spot there. Now again, the fact that they give you different possibilities to pay. Oh, you can just pay, I don't know, $200 just for this video. You can pay even more than 1,000, so we can take it monitored right for you. And in case any more video is going to be uploaded here on any other platform, this kind of different choices, in my eyes, really makes it even more credible, right? Because
Hmm.
that's what everyone is doing. Everyone is giving away, different possibilities of subscription for different just kind of people, right? So if you cannot afford it, you can have it the basic one or the premium one. So it really makes me think this is something legit from a proper corporate, right, trying to sell their services. So
Hmm.
this is a very, a very I don't want to say nice one, right? But
Hmm.
it's definitely well designed, well thought to.
Yeah,
uh,
and like I mentioned earlier, it definitely weaponizes that concept of convenience, of trying
mhm.
to do that favor for you, trying to help you out. And again, it's like, no, we know. And again, the tone that I take from this is, hey, we know this is a hard thing. We know you may not want this stuff up there. So let me help you remove that. And that goes much, I believe that goes much further than, oh, you did this horrible thing. I'm going to go ahead and make you go pay these $1 billion, or like go and beat your family if you don't do this. Like, no, like those will scare somebody. This, again, it has a much, emotionally, to me, it comes off as a much calmer tone, if you will. So,
Cool. So if you agree, we could probably move to the next
yeah,
news.
fine by
That
me.
was, yeah, perfect. So that was an interesting one. Just again, read a reminder,
Hmm.
if you like this and you want to see more with other guests or maybe with Ronnie again, please consider commenting, sharing, and subscribing.
Yep. And if you want to hit me up, antiscam.education.
Absolutely. By the
Yep.
way,
Officially got,
sorry.
I was going to
Uh,
say, yeah, officially got that website set up. So,
yeah, absolutely. I can actually probably write this on the chat if anyone
okay,
is
cool.
watching,
Yeah, that'd
and
be perfect.
I'll take Ronnie contacts and put this on the description for the YouTube video, right? So
Woohoo.
have a look at that. Let me do this. Okay, I'll do this
Hmm.
in a second.
That's fine.
Cool. So, next news. Once again, unfortunately, it talks about Microsoft. We had many news about Microsoft in the last episodes, but it's not on purpose. It's just that stuff is happening, and I really need to talk about this. Microsoft has been in the news for multiple reasons recently, but we had another reason to talk about it this last week. So basically, a team inside Microsoft that is specialized and is working on AI models. I think on image recognition specifically. Um, they were contributing to a GitHub repository, right? Providing some data for people to elaborate the data and use for their own AI models. We know that artificial intelligence, in order to work, needs to elaborate usually a lot of data before, right, to be trained. They say machine learning, it's about the AI models training themselves on a lot of data so that they can use that knowledge to recognize images or to maybe build a new ones. And there's a lot of talking about the majority of data is owned by the companies, and it's difficult to have open source solutions because you can maybe build the software, but you have to get access to the data in order to train your software before, right? But companies have, some companies have started sharing some data sets. This is the case with the Microsoft. In this case, they were doing openly and publicly on GitHub. And the fact that was that the storage that they were sharing, that contained the data, was actually not really well configured, right? Not really, I would say, no one reviewed the configuration very carefully before sharing that URL. and the same key, the same token that they shared actually will provide access to some other data that were not supposed to be shared. Specifically, I think it's written somewhere in there that there were some backups of former employees from the company with everything that was stored on those laptops, right, or computers. There were a lot of data, a lot of password and keys to possibly other resources, and a lot of private messages for internal communication in Microsoft. Now again, I think we have a list of different topics to talk about in here, like the urgency to share those huge data sets, and who is really looking at those data sets, right? What does that data set contain? Can really the company share it, or can the company own it, like from the very beginning?
Mhm.
And because we have seen companies scraping data from the internet in order to build those data sets, which is a little controversial. And anything about misconfiguration, right? Because most of the news out there, when we talk about cybersecurity, are always referring to vulnerabilities, right? 0 days everywhere, or the attackers had this magic key to access everything. While in my personal experience, I work in detection and response. My personal experience, I see a lot of the breaches that are really due to misconfiguration. I would say most of the time, but it's probably something like 50-50 or maybe 60-40. I'm not sure. The point is that attackers don't really have to have access to some magic vulnerability when you don't really put care on your own software or the configuration of your software. So that's what happened in this case, right? Someone was sharing data. The data was maybe supposed to be shared, but you actually get everyone access to everything, and they were actually pretty, I would say, lucky that some security researcher actually found out that and communicated it, because apparently right now it was actually solved. So what do you think? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I can sum my stance up in one word. Oops.
Of course.
So yeah, so on a more serious note, um when we code, like I don't know how you code or anybody listening to this, um we are very judgmental in the case of like, oh, you never put your password in your script, you never do this, you never do that. We have all done it. We
Yes.
have all ran chmod 777. We have all done like 1 2 3 4 5 for a password. Every single one of us. And if we're sitting here trying to be like, oh no, you need to never do this again, it's this horrible thing, like it's a bunch of malarkey. We've all done that. So when I read this, I see a couple things. So first and foremost, like when you're pushing something and you miss like one flag of a permission and you accidentally push something out, it happens. It 100% happens. It happens all the time. This was just one of those unfortunate cases where someone on the outside saw it before it happened. Second, I'm glad that researcher actually reached back to Microsoft to say, hey, you have all of this information public and you may want to go and do it. Another thing I did notice was that my understanding was the researcher had the ability to like delete information too. So if a
Yes.
scammer had access to that, they would have been able to do some damage. But again, my understanding is that didn't happen. Um, the third thing I see, and I could get a soapbox about this one for like the next 2 hours, extended user license agreements. And it's like, Ronnie, how do you get EULA out of like this Microsoft blog post? So every single one of us uses all of these online services. We all have an X account. We have a LinkedIn account. We have a Gmail account. We have a Google account. We have stuff over Microsoft on Bing everywhere. And simply by using that service, you have to say, yes, I want to apply to that EULA. I want to apply to that license agreement in order to use this platform, in order to use this thing. And once you get down in some of that stuff, and it's very like lawyer written to help keep the liability off of you, But when you read a lot of those things, they essentially say, whatever you do on this site, wherever you do it here, we can usually use that, or we can use it to some extent to do this thing here, but it's usually written very vaguely. And my understanding, kind of when I was reading this, was kind of where my mind first went was, okay, all of these messages are being mined. All of this information was being used to train these AI data sets. And we could get into morals and discussions on that. But like I said, keeping it high level to meat and potatoes here, um, is that something that companies should be able to do? Should they be able to use your information to further their technology to then resell something back to you, or in order to make that business case a little further? In many cases, that's a legitimate business model because, again, if you're using something for free, at the end of the day, you are the product. You are that thing that they're making money from. Google, great example, where they have Google AdSense that will have an ad that can be generated everywhere, to where if you go and look something up on your Facebook and you go over on Amazon, like that recommendation that you looked at is going to be on there. Or if you're like, hey, talk to your spouse on let's go and buy this product, it's very weird. And this is a strange phenomenon that it's like, hey, this thing just so happened to start coming up in my ads. So all of these things are tracked. All of these things are metrics that happen. And again, that's a big discussion on the privacy perspective. Is this something where should companies be doing that or not? I don't know the right answer. I know how I personally feel about it, but it's something where those are discussions that we have to have as a larger industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, there was a previous episode where we spoke specifically about the Zoom controversy, right? Where they specified on their terms and conditions that they were going to use your data in order to train AI model. And I'm a bit in a controversial position in this kind of discussion. Like, I think it's nothing new. Like, we have seen this with social media at the very beginning. They were not training AI models, right? But they were still collecting our data and selling them, and they're using them, processing them, right? This is just a new era of how to process data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just yet another product that corporates are providing to the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want access to AI, tools. You probably, the price for that most of the time is going to be your data, right?
Yep.
And
And marketing companies, they do it the same way. Grocery stores do it the same way. All your credit card transactions are saying, hey, I went and did this thing and bought this stuff. If you're using a store card to get a 30-cent coupon off of that package of ham that you're buying, like when you swipe that card, that's now a trackable metric that goes back to the things you purchased on what day to show what you're interested in order to say, okay, when we go and do these flyers on a Tuesday at this part of the year, we're going to go and sell turkeys at a discounted rate because people are going to be buying it. So yeah, it's very much that consumer and marketing case where yeah, that stuff is there and tracked, not just in our industry but all across the board.
so true, so true. And I think there's just only one difference, right? If we compare just the data that they were collecting before and what's happening right now, the fact is that we had for so much time people that wanted to give you know open source tool or just free tools as an alternative to those tools that corporates were providing, where you didn't have your data to be collected. Okay, but what about now? So if you want access to an AI tool that has to be trained with some data before, right? No
Mm-hmm.
matter if there's a corporate behind it or it's an open source tool, right? If you want it to work, properly, it has to be trained before. So again, that data has to be taken somewhere. And even
Mm-hmm.
if, as in this case, Microsoft or other companies are sharing that data with the public, again, where does the data come from, right? If it's still your data that they use somehow, or that your data that you maybe uploaded at some point on the internet, even the open source tool is going to be trained on the same data and to process your own data. So it's even worse in some in some way to look at this. But again, I also think that some people should be already used to it, unfortunately, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's nothing new. uh,
Yep.
uh, you know um, it's a little sad perspective, but it is what it is in my
Yeah,
point of view.
or here's another case, and this one's definitely going to hit home for all the information security people who are listening to this. If you're working in a security operations center at your company, do you have access to the different pieces of metadata about an email that's being sent to your employees? You do. Like, that's written into when you join that company. You have, in some cases, you might have full packet capture of the entire network. You might have SIM data. You might have information from the IDS. So you have those artifacts. So yeah, it's like we're on one side, we're like, hey, we don't want to do this, but on the other side, we're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and the other aspect we said it already is the misconfiguration, aspect of the thing, and how often this again in my eyes is uh, not everyone is thinking about it. Everyone is thinking, okay, I have to patch the latest vulnerabilities and I can do that, but are you also working on your configuration? What about your cloud storage or everything? Like any company, right, like nowadays is using some sort of cloud solution. Like even no, that's going to be infrastructure as a service, software as a service, or whatever. But still, you're using something, and if you didn't really take care about your on-premises software, right, to really configure that carefully, what about the cloud software that's going to be used so much nowadays?
You
I
did
think
put a
that's a
secure.
huge topic.
You did put a secure password when you set up the live streaming cloud platform here, right?
Absolutely, right?
Okay.
You know
Okay.
that.
1 2 3 4 5. Same password as on my luggage.
Yeah, we're lucky no one is watching or listening to this anytime, right?
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, that's the case, right? Either you are a company or you are just a private person like I am. You are responsible to not only pay for the software you're using or just be careful about how you use it, but if you're getting us access to someone else, right, just deep dive and know exactly what you are sharing with what permissions, because as you said before, it's not only about what you are sharing, but in this case it was supposed to be only reading the data, right, getting access to the data so that anyone else could download it and reuse it, but it could be changed, it could be rewritten. So what happens if I take up legit Microsoft URL that they shared, I change the data in it, and anyone who access to it, I don't know, gets even access to a malware or something. So it could be really really bad, right? It could be much worse than what happened this time, and we don't really know how many other times this same thing is happening out there with other companies, other cloud solutions, and everything. And yeah, it's just a mess, I know, but it's still something that I believe no one is really, or just few people are really considering, just because it's, I don't know, less funky, less
Mm-hmm.
fancy to talk about just misconfiguration and not vulnerabilities or stuff like that. Okay.
Or to sum it up in one word, oops.
Yeah, that's the perfect summary, right? And
Yep.
I think it's valid on so many scenarios, not just this one actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably use it. I hope that you didn't really register that as your own possibility. Cool. So what else? I think that's kind of it, and we can probably move out with the next one. And I
More
probably believe,
crypto.
yes, and I probably believe you will like this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So another news. This guys, this time, it's actually, I think, first timer in this episode. It's not about a company being breached. It's about just a private person, even if it's actually a billionaire. We are talking about Mark Cuban, famous. I believe it's famous for the Shark Tank,
Mm-hmm.
TV show or something. And yeah, famous billionaire. So they definitely have a lot of money that a lot of people wants to put their hands on. And specifically, Mark Cuban was and is famous to be a pretty big Bitcoin supporter and cryptocurrency supporter. And of course, if someone has a lot of money and it's a big Bitcoin supporter, is gonna own some cryptocurrency, and that also means that it's definitely a target for those criminals who are targeting wallets, big wallets, and possibly trying to steal some money out of it. So I'm no expert, but if you don't know about Bitcoin and blockchain in general, you should know that it's true that um, one of those features is to anonymize the people who are owning those data, meaning that the actual wallet containing the money, the cryptocurrency, does not have the name of the person who owns it on it. But at the same time, you can definitely go in there if you have the knowledge and the skills, and track every single transaction. So you can definitely see whoever is sending money to another person around the world. And that's what they did with Mark Cuban's wallet. Someone was just monitoring it because they knew there was a lot of money on it. Specifically, apparently, it specified there $870,000 in cryptocurrency. And just monitoring this, they noticed that after a lot of time, 160 days, that there was no transaction, so no movement of money, right? Suddenly, all of the wallet was completely drained. Okay, so everything was actually sent to other wallets. Most of the time is multiple wallets, right? So you cannot, again, easily track everything. And you know that's kind of the event. So what happened, and it's not a new thing. We had similar cases in the past. Now the interesting thing is that Cuban was actually interviewed and said something about it, and specifically said that he believed to have been fished, right? To have been target of a phishing attack, where they found a way to get access to his wallet, so they can then steal the cryptocurrency. His suspicion is that he tried to download MetaMask, that is a famous software to use as a wallet, basically, right? But apparently he didn't really took too much care about what he was downloading and installing, and it was potentially like the malware itself that then drained everything. So once again, just phishing. So just something that is not really technically advanced. It's advanced, but in another aspect, if you ask me. And it led to a lot of economic resources to be stolen, even from someone that should be, or you would expect to be, kind of tech savvy, right? Because he is into tech, he is into Bitcoin, and usually, if you are into Bitcoin, or at least the big supporters know that they have to take care about their digital money, because they are in fact digital, right? So yeah, what do you think about this?
It started out with a fish. How did it end up like this? It was only a fish. It was only a fish. So my official take on this is yeah, it started out with a fish. He went and clicked that, went to go try and download MetaMask. And through doing that, and again, we don't fully have the visibility into how this played out, but we do know that there are fake crypto applications that you can download on your phone, that you can browse through your web browser, that will make it look legitimate. That will make it look like, hey, this is MetaMask, this is Coinbase, this is Cash App, this is whatever. And when you use those applications, they will go and steal your information. A lot of where we see these coming out, and a lot of where we see this playing out, is on the pig butchering side of the fence, or what we consider as pig butchering. And what that is that's a lot of the crypto investment scams that we see that are coming out of like Southeast Asia, that are being used to kind of go and steal those assets. So they may say something like, hey, we have this really great investment opportunity. Hey, we're in this relationship. We want to go ahead and steal this money from you, or not steal this money, but go and invest over here. And again, this is along the same lines as that, where, hey, we now have this application, go file this information, go put your password in here. And for how quickly they were able to cash out, like that's not surprising, because scammers move quickly on these type of scams. The other interesting thing to point out is that when it comes to people who were on Shark Tank, a couple years ago, Barbara Corcoran, I'm probably mispronouncing her name there, but she was actually hit with a business email compromise. So this is not the first shark that we've seen who's been hit with some type of scam. And was it something where they actually targeted Mark? Was it something where it was a random thing? We don't know. But we do know cryptocurrencies are actually one of the top scams out there right now. And it's very common for victims. I've seen a ton of victims hit. Very unfortunate stories, but yeah, it's something where we do see a lot of that happening.
Yeah, I was thinking, especially if you are targeting some of these people with, of course, a lot of money, they will have so many different assets, right?
Yep.
They will have any kind of assets, stocks from companies, or of course cash or accounts in many different banks. But if you think about it, and it's a bit, like a paradox, potentially cryptocurrency is the easiest thing you can probably get access to, right?
Yep.
It should not be, right? Again, if you take care about them, if you just put good passwords, or you don't share it with anyone, you don't install any software without double checking and everything. But still, we know that, again, 100% security is not a thing. Anyone can still fall for something like this. It's not just Mark Cuban is not about pointing, okay, it was his fault.
The other thing too, when it comes to using cryptocurrency, it's not straightforward either. So going to download this program over here or that program over here. Like, I know there's times where I've researched cryptocurrencies as well, trying to find something just to move the currencies around. As I go download this executable here, download this thing here, download this thing here. So it's extremely easy to get confused with when you're going to buy something. In addition to that, there were some changes that went into the Google search engine where you can go and search for certain key phrases, and they're going to go and pop up in the top part of the ads. And scammers know that. So the scammers will go and intentionally abuse that search function where, oh, hey, come to shadywebsite.top. And of course, you can go ahead and download this crypto thing. And from researching a lot of these investment scams, it's very popular with how this works is, hey, we're going to go put a lot of that stuff out there.
Yeah, like, I think they call it like malvertising, when attackers actually pay the search engines to put their spoofy websites on top of the results. And again, we've seen some of that in the previous episodes, so go have a look at that. But again, this is this scenario, right? This is this case. On another scenario, you could have like not a phishing wallet, but also another type of malware that is just stealing any secrets or any password you have on your devices, and with that also maybe the key to access your wallets. So it really depends, and there are multiple ways to get access to them. But what I'm saying is that it's the most public asset that you will have. It's the most easily reachable thing. Okay, you need your the credentials, the keys, and everything, but if you compare that to, is $1 million car, right? You have to physically access his, box, garage, or everything, and maybe they have security cameras and whatsoever. So
that is unless you go the XKCD route of the $5 wrench to ask him where the keys are. But
of course. Or and there was also this case where maybe you have just a very fancy Tesla, and you go and knock into the Tesla itself. Yep. Anyway,
of course, but again, to pop into the door of the Tesla, just use one of those things. You'd be like, "Oh, here's your gas can, or there your charger board."
There's a way for everything, right?
Yep.
What I'm saying is that the wallet is there, is publicly facing, people around the world is monitoring it, right? So the point is that it should be anonymous, but right now, like today on Twitter, everyone knows that this wallet is owned by Mark Cuban, right? So if I want to target Mark Cuban, I definitely know where his money
Hmm.
are, right? Or at least a part of it.
Hmm.
And it's really kind of a paradox. You will think that you know uh, it's on the blockchain. That is another pretty big buzzword from the last years, and everyone is saying, oh, how secure it is, but it's not about the technology. It's still about how you handle your own assets, right? And how public you are, how big of a target you could be, and so on and so forth. Of course, if you are one of the very few wallets which is so full of money out there, because not so many people will have 1 million of cryptocurrency in their wallet, you're gonna be, of course, a target, right? And
Hmm.
you have to be definitely, your security bar should be much much higher than the other people doing this for just few dollars, right?
Hmm.
I think that that's a big topic right there, right?
Yep.
Just because you are Mark Cuban, you should definitely put much more attention to this kind of stuff. But again, of course, they could still find a way to breach your personal defenses.
Yep.
So yeah, I thought this was really the thing interesting about this cryptocurrency. Of course, they are still a big target, and it's all software, so you can easily reach out to that. Even if technically there are the hardware wallets, right? Where I'm not sure what's the word for it, but you can store all the cryptocurrency in a hardware that unless you will have to use that, are physically not attached to any network, so they have to get access to the physical wallet as well. But again, that's
Hmm.
possible. That's still possible. And the fact that once again, phishing was it, right? It's just the easiest way, or the uh, oldest way that still work nowadays for any scenario, being the
It
target.
started out with a fish. How did it end up like this?
And it's not different with a company, or just a person, right? We've seen this even in the previous news. If you have something to lose, then you could still be a target, and anyone could be. You as or just me, right? I am
Hmm.
no one, but still someone can ask me few $100 for prevent my porn video to be re-uploaded. Or if you have $1 million in cryptocurrency, there's still a good way to get into your assets in there. So
Yep.
pretty
And,
pretty good.
and at the end of the day, like while we all have these cell phones and we could text back and forth, email is still one of the primary business communication tools out there. So it's like until we communally get off of email, like phishing will still be a problem. So
Yeah, absolutely. At least that's still, if you consider phishing only emails, but technically you can use
yep.
whatever. I can send you an SMS, or nowadays they changed the name a bit. They call it about smishing or
Yes.
phishing if you are doing it via phone call. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the same stuff. They are just
Yeah.
using a different medium, right? And they will
Hmm.
use newer mediums even in the future, but it's still social engineering, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
and just for the record, just to throw this out here, I absolutely hate the word smishing. Like it doesn't roll off the tongue. Like fishing, fine, woo, go catch something. No, smishing does not roll off the tongue. We need a new name for it.
yeah, actually think about this more on a higher level. Like, why do we need a new name for everything, right? I think it puts just more confusion to it. some
No,
way?
no. The
No.
marketing team needs to have a new name so that we can track the campaigns. And as we track these new campaigns, we can then go sell a brand new Blinky box. And once we sell that Blinky box, I can say my Blinky box is better than that other customer's Blinky box. And because that Blinky box is better than theirs, I can go and charge you $100,000 for my Blinky box. But wait, there's more. Because we have this next gen APT threat synergy threat butt plug Xogu thing on here, now I can go ahead and go sell you this really, really cool Blinky box for $250,000, but I'll mark $50,000 off of that in order to sell it for $200,000, and that's why I need a different name for every damn thing I publish. And you can quote me on that.
I need you. I hired you for when this podcast will explode and I will need to sell stuff to my people.
Yeah, dude. But no. That's having a different campaign name, a different threat group, which is going to be great rolling into the next one. But having a different threat group name for the same freaking malware campaign, the group Tricky Nerd Smishing is a bad name. I'm going to disagree with you on that. But it's one of those things where we're all working together. We're tracking the same stuff. Quit coming up with a new name. It's confusing as it is already. Stop with this whole, I have another name for this threat group when there's 16 other names for the thing. But we're going to track it as a cam. Yeah.
That's actually
God, now you got me on a soapbox now, man.
That's actually a great topic. And by the way, someone is not really agreeing with you. As you can see in the comments, someone is saying, smishing is is it smishing? I don't know. Smishing is an F Sunday.
They're allowed to be wrong. They're allowed to be wrong. I don't care. If that's a hill I die on, so what? Smishing? No.
Yeah. By the way, the thing about different companies giving different names about the same stuff, it's actually a big topic and something that I want to spend just a few minutes on it because again, I do this podcast because I think a very simple thing such as reading some news can be so powerful for just enriching yourself as a professional or just as a passionate person about these topics. And the fact is that just reading them, especially for someone that is not already into the industry, is really difficult sometimes. Right? You can read the same news from 10 different news sites or websites or blogs and everything, and they will use different terms for the same thing, and sometimes those terms actually mean something slightly different and can give a completely different idea about what's really happening on or what's the meaning behind what you're reading. and again, reading something together and discussing about something together with other people and understanding the different kind of point of views or different kind of interpretation of the same stuff, I think it's so useful because just who's writing those kind of news. I don't think everyone is doing this on purpose, but still are making this stuff difficult for the reader.
I wholeheartly agree with you. And again, that's been a soapbox of mine for a very long time. Just from my background, when I started in the industry, I worked for the Defense Industrial Base. We were tracking APTs at the time. And at the time, APT was, we're tracking Chinese threats trying to break into our defense contractors. And even within that small-knit community at the time, we tried to have as many similar names across the board as we could, because it gets into this absolute nightmare of nomenclature where it's like, I call this thing a panda. No, I call this comment crew. No, I call this WebCT. No, I call this APT1. No, I call this unit 61398. And every single name I just rambled off are the same name for the same group based on the malware that they were using at the time. And because of that, unless you have that knowledge, when you go and, like you were saying, from an outside perspective, from a marketing perspective, your marketing teams and your news outlets have absolutely no idea what any of that stuff is. They have no idea those campaign specific things. They're not going to be going looking at, oh, what's this magic byte inside of this malware that they're looking at? It's beyond confusing. It's infuriating because very much with what you were saying is there's so many names for these different things for one, we can't even agree on a name internally within our own industry. And then number two, we now have to go talk to these marketing providers. We have to go and do these press interviews, and they're going to get, not that they're going to get the names wrong, but there's going to be confusion there because they're not in our industry. So no, we need some solid naming in for these groups. Again, we'll get into it. I'll point out some of the stuff in the next article, but
Yeah.
the nomenclature that we're using for how we're naming stuff sucks. And like one of the best things I've ever seen published, and even to this day, it was by a security researcher. His name is Florian Roth. He saw this problem. He's like, no, I'm going to make the Rosetta Stone for everybody. It's a Google document. You can type APT Rosetta Stone. It's the first one that comes up. It's his personal Google Drive link with the names of every single group that maps back. If you've never heard of this thing, go look it up. Like if you're listening to this like 2 months later, go look up Florian Roth's APT Rosetta Stone, and it shows this group maps to that group, maps to that group, maps to that group. And there are some errors in it, don't get me wrong, but it's something where from a how do we have one message going out to everybody, like it's one of the best things that's out there. So yeah, we need better naming conventions and more collaboration across the globe for these groups that we're tracking.
Yeah, and like that's particularly true if you think about attribution to different malicious actors and everything. And I think that's the most tricky topic, because attribution is very difficult. So maybe, yeah, that's true, the same group could have different names, but different companies could have tracking slightly different people. So it's very, very difficult, very tricky. But that's also, I think, the same when you just talk about general terms. Like I had the same thing talking about all of those malware categories. So it's an info stealer or it's a spyware. It's the same thing or it is not. So it's a remote access Trojan or it's a remote access tool, because Trojan is something that has a different meaning by itself, right? That is disguising as maybe a legit thing, right? But remote access tool could be just something, a legit tool. So
it's garbage I don't want on my computer.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I really think we could do some, something better in generally communication in this industry. But I need to stop this topic right here, not because I don't want to talk about it, but because we have another, our actually final news, the most spicy one.
Yeah, and like I said, the good thing is this actually rolls into this article too really, really well.
Absolutely, so much. So let me introduce this. Okay, so the article is pretty cool actually, because I think it's written by a very very cool and skilled journalist, Andy Greenberg. Go read his stuff if you didn't already. And this article on Wired is talking about actually a speech from Mandiant at the CyberSecurity event conference that they did recently, where they tracked a recent trend for that was happening in the last year, that people in the industry will not really think about it to be really recent, right? Basically, what they observed from many different incident response activities out there is that many different multinational companies, which had at least one site based in African countries, they found out the origin, like the initial access of most of those compromise was infection via a USB drive. Okay, so this is something that is really apparently coming from another age, another era, right? It's something that some of you will probably associate with Stuxnet, right? A very very well known story on how they actually attacked. How do you will you call it? Some like an entire industry, right? English is not helping me right now, but just dropping some USB thumb drives here and there so that the employees could take those USB drives just for the curiosity of, understanding what was inside, insert them in their corporate devices, right? And from there, once inserted in the computer, the malware could spread into the network. Most of the time, they needed to do that because the network was isolated, right? It was air gapped. So basically, it was not really connected to the internet. So you needed physical access, and when it's difficult to get that, you just try to trick. Once again, the people, the legitimate employees, to do it on your behalf. So it was really, common and effective, tens of years ago, probably. But apparently, at least in Africa, it's still very, very common, and not really everyone was thinking about it. One of the reasons why this actually possible, that is explained in the article, is the fact that in there are still very common to be seen, like internet cafe, right, where people don't really have continuous access to internet, thanks to our mobile devices or something, but needs to go in on a bar, pub, or something, so they can use and pay for using a computer that is connected to the internet. And from there, if that computer is already infected with a malware, and you maybe connect your own device to it, the malware can spread to your device, and once you go back to your office, once again, the malware can reach to their company networks. Now, I think this is very interesting. First of all, for the attack vector itself, right? This is something that we don't see again that much often, at least on Europe and United States, in my point of view. But also the fact that we don't think that maybe in other geographical areas there could be a totally different scenario where totally different attack vectors are still very common to use, right? And the very tricky thing is that some multinational companies could have like a site in there, and eventually that site will be connected to the rest of the other sites around the world. So if you can compromise an African site for a very big company that is everywhere, you could probably at some point lateral move, right, and end up in other parts of the world, or other parts of their network. So it's very, very interesting thing, and yeah, there are just so many things to do. Where do we start? What do you think?
So for one, I think it's interesting that they were using a USB drive, because here in the States, like, we know, okay, you don't plug in random USB drives. That's something that we have instructed a lot of people to do. We have security companies and organizations that will hot glue USB drives closed. It will be turned off on the system. It's baked into the newest operating systems. So by default, for many OSs here, using a USB drive, like, it wouldn't normally work. But it's interesting to see that when you go and start targeting places outside of the United States, you have cases where laptops and computer hardware may not be as most recent as a brand new thing from HP or a brand new computer from Dell. Because of the cost, because it's much cheaper to buy those older computers, you're going to have cases where you're going to have Windows Vista, Windows XP, Windows 7 on those older machines. And when you have that on those older machines, those security mechanisms aren't there. The second thing that you have is, when it comes to running legitimate software, and this is something that most people may not realize here, is that when it comes to versions of Windows and versions of Microsoft tools, there's an entire ecosystem of pirated software. So many of those keys to use on that Windows computer might not be legitimate. So they're not getting the security updates that they should. They are using second, third-hand copies of Windows that may have been Trojan to begin with.
Mhm.
And when you go and look at the fact that they're able to use those malware, use those drives in order to plug in and infect that work system, I 100% agree with you. Is that when it comes to installing the software and installing those Trojans and that malware, they can use that as a jumping at pivot point. And I've had cases where working for certain companies, like you have someone that will come in and their computer will start randomly beaconing out. Like this is how people get access to networks is you infect them at home where they don't have those protections. They bring their device in, then they're going to become infected. And that's why you have things like knowing what your computer is. You have rules where you set off the personal computers from your corporate assets. You VLAN those off. So yeah, it's very much something that we do see happening and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that it's interesting for me, it's how it actually spread into the network, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we spoke about how they get the first foothold, right? How do
Mm-hmm.
they do the initial access thanks to the USB drives? But the point is that the USB drive themselves, and it's described, I think, at the end of the article for anyone who is going to read this. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but I'm going to put all of the articles, URLs on the description of the YouTube video. So have a look at that. Um, so what they do, right? We are maybe used to nowadays to something like a public available vulnerability or public available service which is vulnerable, so that the worm, so the malware that can spread itself, can technically just scan the network, find out about more hosts, exploit that vulnerability, and install itself in other hosts into the network of the company that was compromised, but also over the internet to other companies. But when it comes to again air gap networks, or whenever you just need to use USB drives or something like this, what happens is that okay again when you enter the USB drive into the computer, it's spread into that specific device. But then at the same time, it I read that part of the campaign is all about espionage most of the time. So they still definitely looking for data to be exfiltrated. So when
Mm-hmm.
you cannot really just send the data out there to the command and control system of the attackers, what they do is to basically save data locally on the USB drive, right? So that if that USB drive is then later inserted in another computer with some internet connection, it can send that later, which is pretty smart. Thinking about it, because you have to think, to become smart, to find a way to bypass those limitations you have, right? Everything becomes a little tricky when you cannot just connect everywhere, scan the network, and find out about other hosts to compromise, or reach out to the directly to the attacker's host in order to send data or download more instructions to so the malware can know what to do next. So it's actually very very interesting how they got so advanced with something so dumb as a USB drive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They have to get really creative. That's the word I was looking for.
Mhm. And the other thing too is that when you're that creative and stuff, yeah, it's definitely interesting with how you have to think about, okay, now that I have access to this thing, how can I not script but have my malware go and grab all these files and then pull them in? And with a lot of advanced targeting or a lot of APT actors like this, that's where their thinking is. Their goals are data exfiltration. Their goals are, hey, I want to steal this weapons technology, or I stole this plane and I need to go and steal the new documents in order to maintain that plane. So it's a whole different mindset of, yeah, of what are you trying to target? What's your end goal here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Like, and about the goal specifically, another thing that is specified on the article is that Mandiant wasn't really able to determine what was the goal in
Mhm.
terms of which side. Like, was the African side just a way to jump on another, maybe a side on the US, or it was actually the real goal, just because of for political reasons, China has some interest in African countries,
Mm-hmm.
and then the malware just spread outside the boundaries, just because it was doing that automatically, right?
Yep.
Same thing.
And you mentioned China's interest in Africa. I'm actually going to bump that real quick too, because one of the things that we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of money from China being invested into places like Africa, and all around there, because we're seeing a lot of like ports that are being developed. There's a whole interesting geopolitical discussion here about a lot of the loans that are being written from China, because they tend to be higher interest. Some of the people are defaulting on them. And now you have a lot of Chinese interests and buildings and organizations that have been built up with that money that are now back under Chinese control. So, from a geopolitical perspective, it's definitely interesting seeing the targeting of things like Core Plug and Plug X going in there, or Sogu going in there, just because of, again, knowing that higher level espionage side of it.
Yeah, and that always happens when you have state-sponsored
Mm-hmm.
malicious groups. Definitely, they are doing it for the interest or their own governments. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's tricky this time because you have China, where it could have the interest in both compromising sites in the US or Europe, but in Africa itself.
Yep.
So yeah, it's always about really interpreting and trying to find all of the different possibilities, because they're not going to tell you directly
Yep.
why they're doing stuff. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to have different hypotheses in there.
Yep. And the other interesting thing too, again, just for context here, for some folks who may not have the article directly in front of
For
them,
sure.
this is the same group that was responsible for the OPM breach. So when the Office of Personnel Management was compromised and had a lot of um, documents on government employees stolen, this was one of the groups that was responsible for that breach. So this isn't some random, hey, I'm going to go put USB drives on here. These guys have been known for well over a decade. Again, they've gone under many different names. I think one of the early names above was like UNC 53. Me personally, I knew him as Sogu or PlugX or Core Plug. Most of the time, that's related to the name of the malware, not necessarily the group.
Yeah.
So it's something where the malware can be shared between groups and everything. But it's something where, again, that's something that they're interested in, is, again, who are these government people? What's their targeting? Again, when you start looking at it from that espionage perspective, there's a whole lot more that plays into, hey, this is a random piece of malware sample. What's the intent behind it? And in this case, we may never know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think most of the time we never know what's the
Mm-hmm.
real goal. We just try to basically understand what happened in the network. So where we have evidence, right? During the investigation, try to understand. Okay, they were looking for this kind of data, so possibly that was one of the major goals, right? If we see exfiltration, then we definitely know that one of the reasons why they compromised the network was, okay, I was searching for data. I needed the data because I don't know, it's the project for a weapon, or just some strategic information that could be useful for research or anything. So that can help the investigators to understand, okay, this could be one of the goals. But again, when you have these really high level actors, they could also have multiple different goals that they are trying to achieve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really difficult. Like, again, it's really interesting, definitely, but it's also very tricky because of all of the geopolitical context that you need in order to understand exactly what is going on. And at the same time, I really like always to stress about the fact that, okay, this is what we know, but there's a lot that we don't know
Mm-hmm.
yet, or we will possibly never know, right?
Yep.
So everything has to be taken as what it is, really, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a problem. Is like we don't know fully what our offensive folks are doing. That's helping influence these operations based on the decades of doing that. So yeah, it gets very confusing. Where from a public perspective, we can see so much, but until you have that fuller scope on the backside, and even then, you may not have that full scope picture. It's yeah, very confusing on like the full intent of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just one last thing I like to mention is that even the thing about the internet cafes, right? Okay, they have seen this. They have the evidence that at some point the malware spread even to those little networks, right? And there's the assumption that could have been the way to initially spread the malware itself, right? Okay, they know, they maybe uh, analyze or follow some of the employees. They knew that they were also going into those kind of places, and they figured out, okay, maybe this could be a way to get into the network, right? But at the same time, could be also just an accident. Okay, so maybe they spread the malware directly into the company network, like the target network. At the same time, the employee take his own corporate laptop and use it to work remotely
Hmm.
from the bar or something, and as a consequence,
Hmm.
the malware spread also into that little network. You will probably never know with the information we have right now, just from reconstructing the incident, exactly all of the individual steps. We can get to know a lot of it, of course, which is the part of the interesting thing, especially because the main reason of doing incident response is try to contain the damage and recover from the damage that it was done, and possibly eradicate the attacker, so they are not into the network anymore, or they cannot re-enter easily into into the network.
Hmm.
But the part where you try to understand the real reasons behind the attack, and try to attribute to some actors or specific cyber criminal, that's where a lot of just hypotheses, in my point of view, came out. And the real investigation that most of the time is done by the secret agencies or law enforcement, we never get, or very rarely get, to know all of these sensitive data, which is unfortunate on one side, because we would like to know about this stuff as well, but it makes kind of sense, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's it. Okay, so I don't know you, Ronnie, but we were talking already for 1 hour and a half,
Cool.
which is pretty good. And
Woohoo.
personally, I enjoyed it so much.
Oh yeah,
Once
definitely,
again,
definitely. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
so cool. Again, that's it. Just discussing with the people. In my case, people that I didn't really know before, which is even better in some point of views. And especially when you and they know something different to me, or just more than me, which is always a good thing, guys. The other thing, it's a bad thing if someone knows more than you. They can teach you something, and just having a random chat, I think it's a very good way to learn something from the people. So thank you so much. Um, Thank you to everyone who is again watching this live on Twitch, and possibly we'll have a look at the recordings on YouTube and Spotify. And please give me a feedback. This was awesome, or this was awful. It's still a very good information, and I know where to go, and what to do with this little project.
It was a
But
lot. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on. So,
that was great.
mhm.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Thank you very
Thank you.
much, everyone else. And have a good day, good night, or whatever.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.